man on platform 7 wasn't waiting for a train. He was waiting for someone who had promised to return 20 years earlier. Every Friday evening he stood in exactly the same place, always at 6:15 p.m., always carrying the same old leather bag. Most passengers never noticed him. Those who did assumed he was simply waiting for family. No one knew the truth, except one station employee, and even she believed he had stopped hoping years ago. She was wrong. Emma Carter almost missed her train. Again. She hurried through the crowded station, balancing a laptop bag, a paper coffee cup, and a phone that refused to stop ringing. Yes, I'll send the presentation. She listened. No, tonight. Another pause. I know the deadline. She ended the call before anyone could add another task to her weekend. Her shoulders already hurt. It had been one of those weeks, the kind that made Friday feel exactly like Tuesday. She reached platform 7 just as the announcement echoed through the station. The 6:20 service has been delayed. Emma sighed. Of course. She sat on the nearest bench, for the first time all day. She had nothing to do. No meeting, no email, no deadline. Just 10 unexpected minutes. She wrapped both hands around her coffee and looked around. That was when she noticed him. An older man, maybe 70, standing alone near the yellow safety line, perfectly still, looking down the tracks, not at his watch, not at the information board, only at the empty railway. He looked as though he expected someone to appear at any second. Emma looked away, then back again. Something about him made her curious. A voice interrupted her thoughts. He's here again. Emma turned. A woman in a railway uniform smiled kindly. You've seen him before? The employee nodded. My name's Sarah. I've worked at this station for 12 years. She looked toward the older man. He hasn't missed a single Friday. 12 years. Sarah smiled. Longer. My father worked here before I did. He remembers him too. Emma blinked. So, who is he waiting for? Sarah shrugged. No one knows. We've all asked. He always gives the same answer. Emma couldn't hide her curiosity. What does he say? Sarah smiled sadly. He says, the train isn't late. Life is. Before Emma could ask another question, the older man slowly looked in her direction. For just a second, their eyes met. He smiled, not because he recognized her, but because he seemed to recognize something else, something Emma herself had never noticed. Then he quietly tipped his hat and looked back down the tracks. Emma felt an unexpected chill, not fear, curiosity, a feeling she hadn't experienced in a very long time. The train finally arrived. Passengers rushed toward the doors. Emma joined them automatically. She found a window seat. As the train pulled away, she looked back. The older man hadn't moved. He was still standing there, watching the tracks, as though the train that mattered hadn't arrived yet. Half an hour later, Emma reached her apartment. She unlocked the door, dropped her bag, kicked off her shoes. The silence inside felt heavier than usual. She had dreamed of a successful career. She had achieved it. A good salary, a modern apartment, a respected position, everything she had planned. So why did the apartment feel empty? Her phone buzzed. It was her younger brother, Daniel. She smiled before answering. Hey, you forgot. Emma closed her eyes. Forgot what? Mom's birthday dinner. Silence. Oh no, Daniel sighed. I told everyone work kept you late. Emma looked at the clock. She had completely lost track of the day. I'll drive there now. It's too late. They've already gone home. She slowly sat down. I did it again. Daniel's voice softened. You've missed the last 4 family dinners. I know. You keep saying work will calm down. Emma had no answer, because deep inside, she knew it wasn't work anymore. It was becoming her life. That night, she couldn't stop thinking about Platform 7, about the old man, about one strange sentence. The train isn't late. Life is. For reasons she couldn't explain, it stayed with her long after she turned off the lights, and before falling asleep, she made a decision so small that it almost didn't feel like a decision at all. Next Friday, she would arrive at the station early, just to see whether the man on Platform 7 would be there again, and she had no idea that one ordinary conversation would slowly uncover a promise that had quietly shaped 2 lives for more than 20 years. The following week passed faster than Emma expected, or perhaps she simply counted the days without admitting it. Monday disappeared into meetings. Tuesday became a blur of phone calls. By Wednesday, she had almost convinced herself that the old man at the station had only been a passing curiosity. Almost. Every now and then, his words returned to her. The train isn't late. Life is. She wondered what they meant. She also wondered why she cared. Friday arrived with heavy rain. Most people hurried through the station without looking at anyone. Umbrellas dripped onto the floor. Wet coats filled the air with the smell of rain. Emma checked the time. 6:08 p.m. She was early. For the first time in months, she walked toward Platform 7. The platform was nearly empty. Then she saw him, exactly where Sarah had said he would be. The same dark coat, the same worn leather bag, the same quiet expression. He stood looking down the tracks as though no time had passed since last Friday. Emma smiled to herself. He really came. She bought 2 cups of coffee, then immediately questioned her own decision. What if he doesn't want to talk? What if I'm disturbing him? She almost turned back. Instead, she took a slow breath and walked toward him. Excuse me. The older man looked at her. His eyes were bright, kind, as if they had spent a lifetime noticing people. I thought you might like a coffee. For a second he looked surprised. Then he smiled. That is very thoughtful. He accepted the cup with both hands. Thank you. They stood quietly for a moment, watching the rain fall beyond the platform roof. Finally, Emma introduced herself. I'm Emma. He nodded politely. Arthur. It's nice to meet you. You too. Neither of them rushed to fill the silence. Oddly, it felt comfortable. Emma glanced down the tracks. So, are you waiting for someone? Arthur smiled. I always am. She hesitated. You don't have to answer if it's too personal. He shook his head gently. It isn't personal. It's simply a long story. Emma laughed. I seem to like long stories. Arthur chuckled. So did my wife. The sentence came so naturally that Emma almost missed it. Almost. You were married? Arthur nodded. For 43 wonderful years, Emma smiled. You still say, are. He looked down at his coffee. Some habits are difficult to change. She noticed a simple gold wedding ring still resting on his hand. He gently turned it with his thumb, a gesture so familiar it seemed automatic. An announcement echoed through the station. Another train arrived. Passengers stepped onto the platform. Others climbed aboard. Within 2 minutes, everything was quiet again. Arthur never looked at the people, only at the doors, as if searching every face. Emma couldn't help asking, Do you really believe they'll come? Arthur answered without hesitation, Yes. So you've never stopped believing? He smiled. I've stopped expecting. But I never stopped believing. Emma frowned slightly. Is there a difference? Arthur looked toward the tracks. A very big one. Before Emma could ask what he meant, Sarah walked onto the platform. She waved cheerfully. "I see you've finally met." Arthur smiled. "We have." Sarah looked delighted. "I've been hoping someone would talk to him." Emma laughed. "So have I." Sarah checked her watch. "I'd better get back." She smiled at Arthur. "See you next Friday." "You always do." She disappeared into the station. Emma looked surprised. "Everyone knows you." Arthur shrugged. "I've been standing here a long time." The rain became heavier. Emma realized she had completely forgotten about checking her work emails. Her phone buzzed twice. She ignored it. Arthur noticed. "Busy job?" "Too busy." "You enjoy it?" Emma opened her mouth, then stopped. No one had asked her that question in years. People usually asked whether she was successful, or promoted, or earning more, not whether she enjoyed her work. She searched for an honest answer. "I used to." Arthur nodded. "I understand." She smiled sadly. "You do?" "I once loved working late." "What changed?" He looked at the rain. "I realized I knew my office better than my own garden." Emma laughed quietly. Then the laughter faded. "Because." She understood exactly what he meant. Another train arrived. Arthur watched every passenger. Carefully, patiently. A young couple stepped onto the platform holding hands. A father carried a sleeping child. An elderly woman smiled as her grandson hugged her. Arthur's expression softened. He genuinely seemed happy for every reunion he witnessed. Emma noticed. "You never look disappointed," he smiled. "Why would I be?" "Because the person you're waiting for never gets off the train." Arthur looked at her kindly. "My dear, when you've waited this long, you stop counting the disappointments. You start appreciating the happy endings that belong to other people." Emma didn't know what to say. She had never heard anyone describe hope that way. At exactly 6:45, Arthur checked his watch. "Time for me to go." "You leave now?" "I always do." Emma smiled. "So next Friday?" "If life allows it." He tipped his hat politely, then walked slowly toward the station exit. Emma watched him disappear into the crowd. She realized something. During the entire conversation, she had forgotten to ask the most important question of all. Who was he waiting for? She almost ran after him. Almost. Instead, she decided something else. Next Friday, she would ask. But neither of them knew that before Friday arrived, Emma would discover a newspaper article that would make her question everything Arthur had told her. Emma had planned to forget about the newspaper article. She failed. It appeared on her screen by accident on Tuesday afternoon while she searched for an old transportation report. The headline immediately caught her attention. "Local businessman still visits platform 7 every Friday after 20 years." She stopped reading emails, stopped answering messages, stopped everything. She clicked the article. The photograph was unmistakable. Arthur, standing exactly where she had met him. The article had been published 8 years earlier. Station regular Arthur Bennett continues his unusual Friday tradition. While many believe he is waiting for a family member, Arthur has never publicly explained whom he expects to meet. Emma kept reading. Then one sentence made her sit upright. Friends describe the tradition as a promise Arthur made after the railway accident of 2004. Emma frowned. A railway accident? Arthur had never mentioned one. She searched for more information. The next article was much older. A commuter train had been forced to make an emergency stop because of a landslide. No one had died. Several people had been injured. Passengers had been stranded for hours. Nothing more. No explanation. No connection. Yet somehow, Emma felt the accident mattered. Friday couldn't come quickly enough. This time she arrived at the station at exactly 6 o'clock. Arthur was already there, looking down the tracks, as always. He smiled when he saw her. "I wondered if you'd come." Emma handed him another coffee. "I think this is becoming a tradition." The best traditions usually begin by accident. They stood together in comfortable silence. Finally, Emma spoke. "I read something this week." Arthur looked at her. "The newspaper?" She blinked. "You knew?" He laughed softly. "I've been in 3 newspaper articles. They all say the same thing." Emma hesitated. "They mentioned a railway accident." Arthur nodded slowly. "They did. Were you there?" "Yes." "Were you hurt?" "No." He looked toward the tracks. "My heart was." Emma didn't interrupt. She sensed he would continue when he was ready. Another train rolled into the station. People hurried past them. Some smiled. Some looked exhausted. A little boy waved at Arthur through the train window. Arthur smiled and waved back. The child laughed as the train pulled away. Emma noticed. "You know a lot of people." Arthur smiled. "I know faces. I don't always know names. But faces? They tell wonderful stories." After the platform became quiet again, Arthur finally spoke. "My wife was named Eleanor." Emma listened. "She traveled often for work. One Friday, she called me." Arthur's voice remained calm, almost peaceful. "She said her train would be late. I told her I'd wait." Emma looked at him carefully. "And then?" He smiled faintly. "The train never arrived." Emma felt her chest tighten. "The accident?" Arthur nodded. "It stopped every train on the line." "Were you able to reach her?" "Not until the next morning." Emma let out a small breath. "So she was safe?" "Yes." Arthur smiled warmly. "Very safe." Emma looked confused. Then, "Why do you still wait?" Arthur gently turned the wedding ring on his finger. Because before she hung up, she laughed, and she said, "No matter how late I am, promise you'll be there when I arrive." Emma smiled. "That's beautiful." Arthur nodded. "It was. So every Friday, I came." Emma looked around the platform. "For 20 years?" "Yes. But if she came home safely..." Arthur's eyes filled with quiet warmth. "She did. We had 16 more wonderful years together." Emma blinked. She suddenly realized. She had misunderstood everything. "You weren't waiting because she disappeared." Arthur smiled. "No. I'm waiting because a promise doesn't stop being a promise. Just because the person is no longer here." Emma didn't speak. She couldn't. The platform suddenly felt much quieter than before. Arthur looked at the tracks again. "When Eleanor became ill, she worried about leaving me alone. I told her not to. She asked me one final question." He smiled through gentle sadness. "Will you still meet my train on Fridays?" Emma felt tears gathering in her eyes. "What did you say?" Arthur laughed softly. "I said, of course. You know I never break promises." Neither of them noticed that Sarah had quietly stepped onto the platform a few meters away. She wasn't listening on purpose, but she heard enough. She quietly looked away, giving Arthur the privacy he deserved. Emma looked toward the railway. "So every Friday, you aren't waiting because you think she'll return?" Arthur smiled. "No. I'm remembering what it felt like to keep my word." Emma lowered her eyes. She suddenly thought about her mother, her brother, the birthday dinner she had missed, the calls she kept postponing, the promises she had quietly broken, not because she wanted to, but because she believed there would always be another chance. Arthur seemed to read her thoughts. "We're all busy." Emma nodded. "Too busy." He smiled kindly. "The strange thing about life, It rarely asks whether we're busy. It simply keeps moving. Emma looked at the arrival board. For the first time, the rushing passengers no longer seemed impatient. They seemed temporary, like moments passing by, moments no one could pause. At that exact moment, Arthur's phone rang. He answered with a cheerful voice. "Hello, Lily." Emma smiled. His face lit up instantly. He laughed. "No, sweetheart. I'm almost finished. I'll bring ice cream." Another laugh. "I promise." He ended the call. "My granddaughter." Emma smiled. "She keeps you busy." "The best kind of busy." Arthur checked his watch. "I should go." Emma nodded. "I'll see you next Friday." He smiled. "I hope so." Then he paused. For the first time since they had met, he asked her a personal question. "Will you have dinner with your family this Sunday?" Emma looked surprised. She thought about the excuse she had already prepared. Then she quietly smiled. "Yes, I will." Arthur nodded. "Good." Some trains shouldn't be missed. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to English Stories Hub. A simple like helps more people discover these stories, and your support inspires us to create new ones. Now, let's continue. That Sunday, Emma arrived at her parents' house 30 minutes early. Her mother opened the door in complete surprise. "Emma? You're early." Emma smiled. "I know." Her mother hugged her tightly. "So, what made today different?" Emma looked past her into the warm, familiar home. The smell of fresh bread filled the hallway. Her father was laughing in the kitchen. Daniel was setting the table. "For the first time in years," she answered honestly, "I finally realized some people spend their whole lives waiting for one train. I don't want my family waiting for me." Her mother smiled without fully understanding why. She simply took Emma's hand and led her inside. Sunday dinner changed something, not all at once, not dramatically, but enough for Emma to notice. For the first time in years, she left her phone in her bag. She didn't check her email. She didn't glance at the clock every 5 minutes. She listened, really listened. Her father talked about his vegetable garden. Daniel described a hiking trip with friends. Her mother laughed while telling a story Emma had somehow never heard before. It wasn't an extraordinary evening. It was an ordinary one. And somehow, it felt more valuable than the last 10 weekends combined. On Monday morning, Emma arrived at work with a different attitude. She greeted the security guard by name. She asked her assistant how her daughter's school play had gone. She even joined 2 colleagues for lunch instead of eating at her desk. People noticed. "So, who are you?" one coworker joked. Emma laughed. "I think I'm remembering who I used to be." Friday came again. Without thinking, Emma bought 2 coffees before walking to platform 7. Arthur smiled the moment he saw her. "I was hoping you'd choose the caramel one this time." Emma laughed. "You remembered." "I remember everything connected to coffee." She handed him the cup. "You were right." "About what?" "I had dinner with my family." "And?" She smiled. "I can't believe how much I've been missing." Arthur nodded. Life rarely disappears all at once. It leaves quietly. One postponed visit, one missed birthday, one canceled weekend at a time. Emma looked at him. "You always know exactly what to say." Arthur smiled. "No. I simply made enough mistakes to recognize them." A fast train rushed through the station without stopping. The wind scattered dry autumn leaves across the platform. Emma watched them spin through the air. "Can I ask you something?" "You usually do." She smiled. "Were you always this patient?" Arthur laughed so hard that a few passengers turned to look. "Not even close." Emma grinned. What were you like? I was convinced everything had to happen immediately. And Eleanor? She believed good things arrived when people were ready. Emma looked toward the tracks. So who was right? Arthur smiled. We both were. Sometimes you must act. Sometimes you must wait. The difficult part is knowing the difference. Just then, Sarah hurried onto the platform carrying a clipboard. There you are. Arthur looked amused. I've been standing in exactly the same place. I know, she laughed. I've got something for you. What happens next? Find out in the next part of our story. Subscribe so you don't miss the conclusion.